as of this week, Nissan gave us the Christmas gift of telling us they may sell to Honda. Well, Mitsubishi is sitting in the hotel corner chair watching trepidatiously, we'll say. It seems like this is one of the weirdest partnerships I have ever read of before, and there's a lot of opinions around this. People will blame a whole bunch of things. The Z being launched 4-ish years late, the CVT transmissions plaguing the brand for 28 years, Nissan ultimately struggling heavy on the EV space even after the success of that little thing that we all laughed at when we were kids called the Leaf, which I do think was kind of rad at the time. But all of those, in my opinion, are wrong things to look at with this situation. Here's what I think is going on and why I think this is a huge and unfortunately bad news for folks like us. I'm AlexMartini, by the way. Grab your tin hats. Let me know if you think this is a good thing below or not a good thing, because I may not be right. Contrary to popular belief. You see, this whole thing initially started on August 1st, where Nissan and Honda announced that they would work together to research the next generation of what they call software-defined vehicles and further their partnership to work together to facilitate a carbon neutral and traffic avoidance-free society, which honestly would only happen if the Maxima and Altima were recalled immediately and everyone that owned one of those vehicles were thrown in jail. This SDV platform was going to help them create the foundation of a collaborated vehicle after 1 year. And their hopes was to provide a common EV structure for their batteries in that lineup. Think like Toyota Supra, but Tesla. And you right now might be saying, oh, Nissan's been on a downward decline since forever. They can't sell a car if their life depends on it. And you might be true, but they are selling, and I'm sorry for giving you a Southern accent. Annual revenue for 2024 so far is trending past $87 billion, which is an 11% increase over 23. Honda, on the other hand, have sold more than $140 billion so far in 2024, which is a 12% increase over 2023. But Nissan has something that Honda doesn't. The success of Honda has always been simple, right? Like, just deliver a reliable car that has maybe like some fun elements to it, keeping it cheaper than anything else out on the field, and you'll be good. They've had zero luck in Europe. Last year, Nissan sold nearly 300,000 cars to that angry conglomerate of countries, whereas Honda only sold 60,000. Nissan has production in the UK and Spain, and Honda has a CR-V that's getting squashed by the Qashqai. I'm terrible at pronunciating things like this. I don't even know how to say that one. It's a model, okay? So Honda has accolades, but needs Nissan's distribution. That could be a reason, right? Nissan is the uncle that's been to jail, and most people would blame Nissan's recent troubled history with this man, Carlos Ghosn. Now, Carlos, he's a turnarounder. I've talked about this guy a million times. He's wicked, crazy. His lore is insane. Someone who's hired to fix businesses, and in the 90s, he was responsible for flipping Michelin South America's profitability in that plant at only 30 years old. Everyone thought it was impossible. This guy did it in 2 years. This is the kind of villain or protagonist we're talking about right now. He became COO of Michelin North America, and then he became CEO in 1990. In 1999, he would join Nissan through his time at Renault. He became the COO for a year before obtaining the fancy title of CEO at Nissan. He single-handedly flipped Nissan back then into a profitable company in 2 years. Okay, this is the man with like the free-to-play hairline, because he had game, because he did it all, including getting arrested. This is where it got weird for Nissan, and this is where a lot of people think the problem with Nissan began. You see, he was accused of underreporting income by about $82 million. He was detained in Japan for over 130 days under the accusation that he stole from Nissan. Nissan spent $200 million of their own dollars trying to figure out if what he did was actually illegal. And although he snuck out using a suitcase in a $15 million private jet scheme, he still claims that he didn't do anything wrong and that it was the traditional Nissan leadership that forced him out. The beginning of the downfall of Nissan. But I thought it was curious. I wanted to see if maybe he had some thoughts on this, because no one quite understands why these two companies would partner up. Like, what would the Carlos Ghosn think about this? Well, he did. He responded. And it's about as positive as an ex taking a call for a job referral. Not the best. He says they're in panic mode. There's practically no complementary between the two companies. They've been the same products. They're making the same thing. He said like that, similarly, okay?
It's not a pragmatic deal because, frankly, the synergies between the two companies are difficult to find. There is practically no complementarity between the two companies. They are on the same markets, they have the same products, the brands are very, very similar. So in a certain way, from one side, Nissan, it's a desperate move to try to find the future.
Which is true, which meant I had to do more digging as to why anyone thinks these two brands need to work together. Like, does Nissan, do they get the golden leaf? Are they the ones that need to be saved? They did cut 9,000 jobs just last month. Their stock is down 20% year over year. And now they've got Chinese car manufacturers like BYD knocking on their Thailand and Brazilian front doors, with nearly 70% of any EV being made by BYD in that location being bought and sold versus something like a Honda or a Nissan. And that's the official reasoning. They say Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry came up with the idea in late 2019. And if you know anything about the Japanese government, they don't like it when their companies fail. So is it China's fault? I'm not so sure I'm convinced. And this is where I would ask you to grab your tin hats. Combined, Nissan would be the third largest manufacturer in the world, behind Toyota and Volkswagen. And while there's some optimization, we'll call it, which is just fancy word for firing and closing places down, I think Nissan is preparing for a war with the folks who make iPhones. You see, there's a company called Foxconn. It's a Taiwanese company and is the largest contracted manufacturer for Apple iPhones. They also happen to be a company that helps manufacture EVs as well. Seeing Nissan's troubled sales over the last couple quarters, they had actually planned to invest a, quote, significant, which I would just call a hell of a lot of money, into Nissan, to which Honda, well, they absolutely hated that idea. But there was another company that did, and they were called the Japanese government. So what's happening? What do I think is really happening here with this entire thing? And why do I think it's so crazy? Well, here's what could happen. Option one, Honda and Nissan are merging to give us a twin-turbo V6 Honda S3000 for every enthusiast to buy at $30,000 so we can all go home happy and thankful that these manufacturers had finally listened to us. No, that's not. Option two, you have one of the last Japanese titans struggling in a country where conglomerates are not known to struggle, facing an offering from an arch nemesis located in Taiwan called Foxconn. Japan's government sees this, they panic a little bit, and they volunteer their two sons to play along and bring the redheaded stepchild if they really want to, aka Mitsubishi. The result is forcing a way to work together where that work is spent where they both kinda stink. EVs and CVTs. But it's a scary time for people like us, in my opinion, because global transitions that happen like this typically mean the frills of a brand disappear. It also starts to show that this China competitor of car manufacturers are starting to hit brands that we know and love. Like, what happens to Infiniti? Why would Honda continue to play in motorsports if they're shilling out as an absorption of Nissan through NISMO? Who dies and who stays? Just who in the hell is ready for an Altima driver to have VTEC? The thing with this that makes this so weird is that Nissan used to have an edge. We all know what Nissan was good for. They made fun, coupe, rear-wheel drive manual cars that were kind of cheap and a ton of fun. Hondas have that edge for us still in certain markets, but they've started to fall away from what it seems like normal everyday people want globally. And now you have these two companies that are slowly starting to lose what makes them getting absolutely raked over the coals in terms of what China and Taiwanese companies are now offering the global market. Brands that you and I love. I will be a Nissan fanatic until I die. And if they made a Datsun 240Z again, I would buy 3 of them. One for the summer, one for the winter, and one for my kid, because that's just how it goes. And with Honda, I love what they've been doing, but for some reason or another, it seems like they're kind of getting the short end of the stick of taking this on. And I think it's because the government is forcing them to do so. But that, to me, makes it feel like both of them are kind of on a downward spiral. When somebody has to come in and tell you what to do, that doesn't even get to go into the beginning situation that Nissan has so much garbage, like from an infrastructure-wise, and I'm talking about Japan, in terms of decision-making that has resulted in so much conspiracy theory, even from the previous CEO. How do you even get to a decision with that stuff while thinking you can do it in a time frame that's gonna be competitive? Whereas companies like Kia and Hyundai, companies like the Chinese companies making EV and Foxconn making more EVs that they're trying to get into North America, is it already too late? I have absolutely no idea, but I have a reason to believe that I don't think Nissan or Honda would ever jump into a partnership together by choice, and this picture right here kind of proves how I feel. So where and how does this all work? I guess you can let me know if you disagree below. But this is probably one of the weirdest things I've ever read in terms of two companies working together to produce something where instead of it feeling like something exciting and proactive, it feels like defensive warfare. I'm AlexMartini. Don't forget to subscribe, drop your comments below, and of course, thank you so much for watching. Hey!